All right, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle with another episode of Hillsborough and Hunterdon Real. Got my very good friend Casey Ransone on. I've known Casey since we're young boys, like 10 years old, 9 years old.
What's up, everybody? It's Kyle.
Hold on
Casey,
one second,
since we're
Case. Getting a little feedback.
young boys, like 10 years old, nine.
Okay, there we go. And Casey is somebody I really look up to as a coach and as a father and as a man. So, Casey, thanks for being with me, buddy.
No, thanks, Kyle. I always enjoy being asked to be part of this. And, so I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you making a time adjustment to have me on. So I'm ready to go, man.
All right. So kind of just catch everybody up. That was a long time ago that we did the first one. Catch everybody up to where you're at in life, still coaching. Just kind of catch us up with that, and I'll dive into some questions.
Yeah. So, pretty much it's been, pretty much the same old stuff for me. Still coaching at Hunterdon Central. I'll be going into my fifth year. It's amazing how time flies. I've been a head coach now for going on 10 years, and it doesn't feel like that long, but it's really like at the blink of an eye of, those years start to really add up. And, so still trucking along, kids are still, doing great. Family's great. So I have no complaints here. Excited for the next chapter moving forward for this season.
Great. And I know the past few years, obviously, right, have been strange with, 2 years ago, you guys had an abbreviated season. Practice was weird the way, they had to be run, all that type of stuff. And then this year, I think you had more of a normal experience. But talk about some of the challenges the past 2 years as a coach. We're trying to get these kids to remain focused in some of those challenges you guys faced.
The past 2 years have been the most challenging years you can ever imagine as a coach and for the kids, because at number one, athletes are creatures of habit, and everything has been thrown off. Okay, from taking our locker rooms away from week to week, not knowing who's going to be able to play based off of these protocols. So there was a lot of unknowns, and so it becomes difficult as a coach, right, to prepare. It becomes difficult as a player to prepare, but at the end of the day, when you look at the big picture, it's also, you take everything as a learning experience, right? Not the most conducive environment for winning, not the most conducive environment for being productive, but like you always said, reframing it, it's an opportunity for us to learn how to adapt, learn how to overcome adversity, learn how to be resilient. And I think that's the approach we've taken with it, because literally every day was something different. We've in the past 2 years, we've literally had practices where we went to games with 16 kids on 2 days of practice. 1 week we went to play the game on 1 day of practice.
Wow.
And then it becomes, that the balance of, geez, do you even go play this game because you're setting our kids up for failure? But the other end of the spectrum, it's okay. So we have senior football players here, and they only get so many opportunities to play this game. You don't want to take that away. So I think the biggest thing I've learned in this over these last 2 years is adaptability is key, and to try and keep things as consistent as possible for the kids. Not show any panic, not show any kind of fear, not show any kind of falling under the pressure or sitting there complaining about what's going on. There's certain things that we can control, certain things that we can't. And let's control those things. And I think our coaches have done a good job of that. Our players have been very adaptable that way. Now, obviously, we've struggled a little bit in the win column, but when you look at the big picture, I'm extremely happy, extremely proud of how our kids have handled these past 2 years, how our coaches have handled these past 2 years, and I think we're going to take a lot out of this, these experiences as a football team into our lives. Especially for our younger kids, that are going to now go on taking their place in the world, becoming young men, that they'll be able to take these experiences and be able to, apply to their business life, their relationships, and all that stuff.
Sure. Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. I mean, I know we've talked throughout it. How did you and how do you keep your mind, so obviously you got to focus on keeping the kids reframing and making sure that they stay with their focus where it's got to be. But how did you personally, so you're dealing with the COVID stuff as far as the coaching experience, but then you also said, throw all that in, the wins, losses haven't been where you wanted them to be, obviously, right?
Yep.
What were you doing to stay, okay, next game, next practice?
Well, learn a lot of it from you, meditation. And to me, my meditation is prayer. So I do a lot of readings. I do a lot of prayer readings. In fact, one of my Coach Bill, you kind of always sends me one before the game. And it kind of keeps things in perspective for me of what we're really trying to accomplish here, because we're all competitive people, right? The kids are competitive. We want to win. We're preparing to win. We're giving everything we got as far as our effort and our preparation to win. And it just, for whatever reason, just hasn't shown on the scoreboard. But that doesn't mean that it's been a lost season. That doesn't mean that we're not doing things the right way. And to remind myself of that is where I use prayer. And that's really my meditation, my form of meditation. And a lot of reading and having a great support system. Obviously I have a great support system at home. My wife, I got a lot of good friends like yourself that when I need to talk about something, I'll reach out and I'll ask, for advice to specific people. So my support system, and I really think through prayer and belief and faith. And at the end of the day, when you look yourself in the mirror, and I do this every night, you go home, right? You reflect, that old metaphoric, you look yourself in the mirror. To me, that's just reflection on what you've done throughout the day. Are you satisfied with that? Did you give your all? Did you teach these kids to the best of your abilities to be good men? And I could confidently say that we have done that as an entire staff, and our kids, if you watch our kids play, if you watch how our kids act, if you watch how our kids conduct themselves, on and off the field, I think you see that. So I think that's how I've kind of kept perspective of things and not allowing it to the overwhelming, because there's always outside noise. There's always people out there that want to criticize and really don't most of the time don't have any idea what they're talking about or any idea what's really going on inside the inner circle. And so I concentrate on that, and I think our coaches do and our players have. So it's a beautiful thing. You walked in our locker room, and this just isn't coach talk. Never, ever has there ever been a practice, a game where we haven't gone into it, number one, giving full effort, blaming others, pointing fingers for what's going on. And we know that could easily happen, right? Particularly in today's society. That's what we teach kids. That's what we teach, is to, when things go wrong, to point fingers, blame others, right? Somebody else's fault. Our kids haven't done that. Our coaches haven't done that. So, that has also helped. I think that comes, though, from the leadership in the room. And when I say that, I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the assistant coaches. I'm talking about our players, right? And it's all kind of everybody taking ownership for their jobs and what they have to do. And I think our players have done that. Our coaches have done that. So it's made this a lot easier to go through the losses, because I think we're really taking lessons from this that we can apply to life. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. This is high school football, and I don't care what anybody says, right? I've been to the top of the mountain in sports, and obviously right now we're trying to climb back up to the top. But so you've been in both scenarios, and the one thing I've learned over a long period of time is that is what this is really about.
It is, man. And it's really cool to hear you talk about prayer aspect in your faith. So I have a couple of questions on that. I mean, the Bible talks a lot about, how we shouldn't worry. So talk about, how do you take that principle and apply that to yourself as a coach? And how do you convey that to the athletes, the kids, about, okay, we lost 2 in a row. We got, we only got 15 kids this week. How do you apply that, like, that we should not worry, to your coaching?
Again, that's a good question, Kyle. And I don't know if there's one specific answer to that. I really think that's really just actions. I think you convey that through your actions. Okay. So to me, prayer is my foundation, to where really I give thanks to what I have and not what I don't have. And then that kind of calms me. It puts things in perspective and allows me to say, all right, this is what I got to do right now, right, to get us better. and then try and convey that to the players as well through meetings and showing videos and talking about life situations and showing examples of these things that they do come to fruition, that, hey, yeah, you put one foot in front of the other, we end up where we're supposed to be. You just keep working and moving forward and not allowing outside noise to affect you. I think so. I think talking about it, we do that a lot. You know, I've brought you in past years when we were allowed to discuss these things and try and teach that principle of understanding the here and the now. There's signs all over our locker room. You've seen it, to remind our kids of that. And then I think the final part of that is the kids have to see how we are reacting, meaning how are we conducting business with each other? I mean, how are coaches interacting with each other? Are we yelling at each other? Are we yelling at kids? When I say yelling, there's a big difference between coaching hard and yelling, right? So are we continuing to coach? Are we continuing to spread a positive message? Or as coaches, are we blaming each other? Are we starting to play? And that happens. I've been around programs like that where, like, little by little, coaches will start to, hey, no, well, you know what? Go talk to that coach. That's his job, or this. We've never taken that approach. So I think how we interact with each other, how we coach those kids, and the positive message that we are constantly sending starts to just snowball into the kids understanding that, yeah, that these coaches really believe in what they're preaching, because they're actually living it as well. And then you see that, you see the kids start to convey that as well. So I think that's how I approach it. That's how I think of it. That's how we try and keep our kids moving forward and staying positive and understanding that, yeah, it is about the here and the now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we've talked a lot about that, right? You can't, the future doesn't exist. It's just wasted energy, which is worry, really. That's just projecting into the future, visualizing the future.
And one of the message I always use, Kyle, comes from you, is where where your energy flows.
Where your attention goes, energy
flows and results follow. That's a sign that's right in our locker room, right? And it's something that it is a truth. So if I want to put my energy towards the things that we've done wrong, right? Not necessarily wrong, that we haven't been successful at, or that we haven't executed well at, we're never going to be able to fix those things. We're never going to be able to, solve the problem, right? Because my energy is going to go to the negative, what we're not doing, what we're not executing well, and it's going to be constantly on the negative. There's no way that we're ever going to be able to fix that. It's like poison in the well.
Yeah.
The other aspect that I should have touched on, that I'm really harping on it right now in the off season, especially with our coaches. We meet twice a week for 3 hours. It's this book, Extreme Ownership, which I'm sure you've read, with Jocko Willink, where the expectations of everybody owning their job. And once you have a team full of guys that own their job, then you're going to have a successful team. And we've done that, but we're looking to improve on that. Take even more extreme ownership to what you need to do in all aspects of your life, so we can get to where we want to be. And we will. We're not going to run from hard. I believe in that. Like, we've said a lot of people run from hard. That's been a big part of our issue too, where we've lost some players because they didn't want to go through the hard, and maybe a little bit talent. But I think in the long run, that's going to help our program flourish.
Yeah, 1,000% will. And I think that ties into another interesting thing that you do that I don't think a lot, especially at the high school level, I don't see a lot of coaches that have core values and kind of are running, their organization like a business, right? To me, it's the same thing. But if you look at all successful college and pro teams, they have mission statements, they've got core values. So talk a little bit about that, like the core values you guys have and how important that's been for you guys.
To me, it's the most important thing we have. It's the foundation of the program. So when difficult times happen, you're able to go through them, right? And the foundations don't crack. That's where your core values really come into play. And our core value has always been, for lack of better terms, it's just doing the right thing, right? Doing the next right thing, no matter what, right? And again, focusing on character people, right? Opposed to guys that may be more talented but don't want to do the right thing. And we've always had that in our locker room. And that is just the core foundation. And then the rest of it kind of splinters off to, right, developing skills, developing better football players, all that stuff. But that core value, and it's really just one. I believe in we have more, but they splinter off, but just having high character people in the room, right? And we've had that. And I think that's helped get us through these difficult times. It's an amazing thing if you looked at our record, and I'm not, it's high school football, but it's important to people. It should be. It's important to me. It bothers me. We all want to win, right? And there's a blueprint for winning. And sometimes you got to go through those difficult times to get to where you want to be. But because of that core value, because of the people that we have in the room, right, we're only going to tolerate people who want to do the right things and are high character people. It has allowed us to go through this difficult time, right, with a limited amount of people trying to, kind of the jackals, right, trying to pull you off your path. And it's allowed our guys to stay on that path and understand that we'll get to where we want to be eventually.
Yeah. And I think that's, it's neat how this all ties together, right? To you were talking about how prayer, how big that is for you and your faith, but how that ties in. You said the jackals, right? And I always think like the way that evil or the devil, so to speak, works is they plant the most powerful weapon is the wedge of doubt. And it just takes a little bit of doubt into your brain. And if you don't nip that in the bud, that grows and grows and grows. And then, so you looking out for the jackals and not allowing that, squashing that right when it happens is so powerful. And so that ties into another thing I wanted to ask you about. What do you do if you have players, or maybe it's happened with coaches in the past, if they start gossiping about other players, other coaches? How do you deal with that?
Well, if it's a player, first thing I do, I'm going to call them in. I'm going to have a one-on-one meeting with them, and explain to them again. We go over what the expectations are, right, with our players individually, and collectively as a team. But so one of the big things is that, what's said in the locker room stays in the locker room. And that doesn't, when I say that doesn't mean negativity stuff. It means that we're going to go through things together, and that we're not going to allow outside noise to kind of infiltrate our locker room. So if something like that's happening, the first thing I would do is call a player in, have a conversation. I want to know what's going on. Why, right? Why, where is this coming from? Explain, right, that nothing good comes from this kind of stuff. If there's an issue, that's okay. It's a team. It's like a family. We're all going to have times where, even if things are going great, right, there's going to be times where we disagree. We don't have, the same, we're not meeting eye to eye. That's where that conversation needs to be had with the player first. And then, right, as a group, you have an issue, we will air our grievances together as a team. If you're a close family, you could do that. And again, we're not going to run away from conflict. We're going to hit it head on to solve that problem. And I've always taken that approach. First, it's like, let's have this conversation. Let's figure out what's bothering you, why, right? And then once we find out what that problem is, then we're going to attack it as a family, as a team, and address it that way. Now, that persists, okay, now there's a time where, unfortunately, if you're not going to be on the bus with us, we got to stop and let you off, because if it's something that obviously if you're feeling that strongly to where you got to continue to do that and eat away and erode and poison the well as our team, that's when it's time you got to let someone go. Not an easy thing to do, but sometimes you have to do it. I always credit to this, and I'll leave his name out of it, but and I love the kid. I have a great relationship with him. But the previous school, I had a kid who's an NBA player right now. One of the most talented kids I've ever coached, if not the most talented. Was a starting quarterback for us when he, as a sophomore, took us to a 9-0 season. His junior year came back, and he was just kind of late to practice every day, kind of a little bit of not every day, but enough. And got a little bit of a bad attitude, and at some point I had to let him go. And the reason being is that, hey, we may win a couple more games with you this year, but over a period of time, we're gonna lose the war, right? And I got 80 other guys in that locker room that are seeing what's going on and seeing the things that you're doing, seeing some of the things that you're saying, okay? And we just can't have it. And so I had to let him go. And I really believe it was after that year is when we got on an incredible run on top of it, where I think we ended up being 26-3 over the next 2 years or 3 years because of that. And that's continuing even after I left. But I believe in that. Sometimes you got to let people go. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. It's not what you want to do, but if that's something that's gonna poison the well, that's when it's time to make that decision.
Yeah, and it's being in a position of leadership. I know what you're saying. That's not easy, but you think as a coach, right? Every relationship's gonna come to an end anyhow. Sometimes you gotta actively end it. And what are you currently doing for like reading? What are you reading as far
right now? I'm reading the Extreme Ownership,
Okay.
Which I've read. I'm rereading it, but the big one I love. I think I text you. I'm reading. It's not really reading, but it's the Art of War.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a book about visualization. So it takes a passage from the Art of War and then it kind of puts it in a visual ikigami for you, where you want to be in the center, and it takes each piece of that. And I'm loving it because it kind of relates to me. So I can read a passage. Sometimes I struggle with understanding what the passage is really trying to convey to you. And then I look at this visualization and it's just a bunch of ikigamis or some kind of pie chart, something that kind of just speaks to me like, this makes sense, and this is where we want to be. So it's something that I've been doing. I bring it to our coaches every week. Like I said, we're meeting twice a week. So Wednesday's our first, is the first day we meet during the week. And I always bring that to the coaches and we discuss it and talk about why we want to be at this particular place.
That's neat, and I think that's what helps you weather those storms, reading stuff like that, and always seeking the next book or the next seminar or whatnot. What are you doing as far as a personal routine that helps you, like on a daily basis? Do you go for a walk every day? Is it something with nutrition? Is it something with daily prayer? Is it a bunch of stuff where you combine it? Like, what do you do to make sure that you have a foundation?
Yeah, I think again, creatures of habit, right? So you have to have, to me, a routine. I'm going to be honest. I kind of fell off it a little bit this past season as far as my daily routine of working out, that kind of stuff. And you can feel it. You can feel your energy, your body change and all that stuff. So I've made that commitment now. What's helped is I'm only coaching 2 sports, where I was just being pulled in too many directions, right? And where that concentration of like getting really good at what you do. I've always felt like I want Hunterdon Central to do well in everything. But it's got to the point where I was just being pulled in too many directions. So I had to take a step back with coaching basketball, which has allowed me to kind of get back onto my path of routine. So every morning now, I get up. First thing I do is I do a reading, some kind of passage. It doesn't necessarily have to be out of the Bible. It's something I'll look up, just some kind of spiritual passage that will relate to me, that I that I go to work. I've been doing the fasting now. I've gotten back into the fasting. I think that's helped my energy. That's helped my discipline. And then every day, at least try and get 45-minute workout to clear my mind. And now at night, I've been reading. I've been making conscious to make sure I'm doing at least 15 minutes of reading this Art of War book, right?
Nice.
And thinking about how that applies, number one, to life, right, as a dad and a husband, but how can I apply this to our football program? I bring it back to our coaches, and then as a staff, we sit there and we try and take bits and pieces of it and add it to like our core values or something that we want to instill into our kids.
Yeah, that's excellent. Excellent. What a couple questions. One, first with your dad. So your dad coached us growing up, right? It was always around. He's a great man. What is the number one coaching thing that you learned from your dad as a coach?
As a coach, I can tell you this. Here's the number one thing I learned from my dad, and I guess you can apply it to coaching, right? Is you never be scared to give up something good for great. So in 1997, my father was, no college degree, was Army veteran, volunteered during the Vietnam War, the whole deal. But he worked his way up Wrigley's Chewing Gum, and I apply this to coaching too. But so he became vice president of Wrigley's Chewing Gum, the sector out here in Edison. And in 1997, he just, Mr. Wrigley passes away. And just a lot of the things that were going on after that, he did not really agree with. Firing people who've been there for a long time, people that didn't deserve to lose their jobs. Then they actually kind of asked him to possibly take over, become the president of the sector out here, and he quit and took this job at that he just retired from, the second job at for golf operations in Somerset County. And at the time, you're like, whoa, you're giving up a corporate salary, all those amenities as far as, corporate car, all those things. And you're taking a huge, huge, huge pay cut at the time. And everybody's kind of like, what are you doing? And his thought, he was very calm. His thought process was, listen, we're going to be fine. And from that day, he really built up Somerset County golf operations to be one of the best in the country, with Neshannock Valley being built. And obviously had a lot of help with friends and support with friends with that. But he also brought in the Callaway fitting center that does over $1 million in sales in clubs. They're the #1 sales in clubs in the entire country. So I think that's what he's taught me, is just never be afraid to give up something good for something great, meaning that, have no fear, right? That, again, we'll end up where we're supposed to be as long as you're betting on yourself and you're doing the right thing. So not necessarily like an actual coaching thing that he may have taught us on the court or on the football field, but something that I apply to coaching. And I think it's one of the most important things. I've always even done that with jobs, right? I left Elizabeth for St. Joe's, gave up tenure, all that stuff. I had a great thing going at St. Joe's. I felt Hunterdon Central is the place I've always wanted to be, living in town, all that stuff. So I try and instill that in our football program as well, as far as coaching, right? That, we're always going to be, we're not going to coach in fear. We're not going to play with fear, right? We're going to understand that we're going to end up where we're supposed to be, right? Betting on ourselves, doing the right thing. So I think that's probably the biggest, not only life lesson, but coaching lesson my father ever taught me.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I think what you're saying, Case, is when you live by principles, it makes it easy to continue to act in the face of fear, right? Because you're not reacting, you're responding. You have your principles, and you're going to do what you think is right, no matter the judgment or what other people think. And let me ask you, we got about 2 minutes, 2 more questions. So besides your father, any coaches that you've had in your life, so not including your dad, what is another lesson that you've taken away from another coach, and who was that coach? Like something that stuck with you, like you remember that moment.
I got to be honest. I've had a ton of great coaches. We were extremely lucky, Kyle. We had, from your dad to Mr. Hayden to Mr. Ryan, we had extremely great youth coaches. I got to play for Coach Fronheim, who's one of the winningest coaches, and played at Division I level for Coach Cosgrove, who was great, Parlavecchio, who was one of my mentors. And then this past 2 years, I've had the guy Lester Erb mentor me, who's now at LSU. So I've had a lot of great coaches. But there's one thing that jumps out. I'm playing for Coach Fronheim. One of the best lessons I think that he's ever taught me. Now, we were fortunate to win a lot of games there, and I never saw Coach Fronheim, whether we were winning 46-0 or whether we were losing 28-0. Now, luckily, we weren't really in that position too often, but if we were, I never, ever saw him change his demeanor. I never saw him blame, and he was just the same guy all the time. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, and I've got to get better at, because everybody's different. I know one thing I've learned from coaches is that you never want to be that person that you want to emulate. You want to take bits and pieces from everybody you played for or coached with, but you need to be your own person. So I'm a fiery guy. It's just how I am. I'm very passionate, but I still try and instill in the kids that, hey, I don't care if we won or lost, right? We're going to go to work and we're going to continue on our path. Now, how we approach that is different, meaning our demeanor is different. But I think Coach Fronheim, that's one thing I always took from him. He was just, cool, calm, and collect all the time.
Like a stoic, right?
Yeah.
That's it, man. How about last one? What in 2 years, what do you see for your life? 2 years from now, not a year, 2 years.
Well, a couple things. Number one, obviously, I got a little bit of I've dabbed in a little bit of a business adventure with, investing in real estate. And so I see that growing. It already has in the last year. It's amazing. We bought one house, already sold it, and then we got another house already. So I see that growing. We want to continue to do that. take chances with that. But this is just how I am. I'm a very positive person all the time. So what I see is in 2 years is that our football program really taking a huge step up, right? Getting to where we want to be. I see it because I do see growth in our program, even though the outsiders, the perspective might look different because of the scoreboard. But again, right, perception isn't always reality. So in 2 years, I see our football program, taking a step forward that, and continuing to try and become a better coach and continuing to get to be able to coach in the town that I live in, and getting us to where, we want to be.
Awesome, man. It's cool how clear you are on what you want, and most people have no idea. If you ask them about what it, and it's not worrying about the future, it's just visualizing a positive future, because then you make it to reality. So that's neat, how much work you put into your mental game.
Yeah. Hey, learn it from you. Learn a lot of it from you. You know that you're one of the guys I always lean on for that kind of stuff. And, like I said, I appreciate you having me on. I'll do this anytime you ask me. I'm just grateful that you do ask me. So. Yeah,
I appreciate it, man. This is great. And, I know you can have a lot of support in the community this coming year, and it's good, man. It's all good stuff. All good stuff. So thanks for being on, Case. Give me 1 second to bring this to a close.